She's not in the breakout room.
She's in the breakout room.
She's not in the breakout room.
She's in the breakout room.
Ah, now she is. Okay, finally. Good.
How many people are gonna be
now
in the
she is.
lounge? It's
Okay,
gonna be you,
finally.
me, and
Good,
Tia only,
good.
right? How many people are gonna be in the
now she is.
lounge? It's
Okay,
gonna be you,
finally.
me, and
Good,
Tia only,
good.
right? How many people are gonna be in
now
the
she is.
lounge? It's gonna be you, me, and
Good.
Tia only, right? How many people are gonna be in the lounge?
The feedback
Okay.
loop is
I know
horrendous.
it sounds like a great remix.
The
Yeah.
feedback
Okay.
loop is
I know
horrendous.
I'm
it sounds
DJing.
like a great remix.
Told you.
The
How many people are
feedback
gonna be in the lounge?
I'm DJing. Told you.
How many people are gonna be in the lounge?
I'm DJing. Told you.
This is a great.
so weird.
I'm DJing. Told you.
This is a great.
Download
Okay.
it. Yeah, I just need to choose my virtual background now.
Okay.
Yeah, I just need to choose my virtual background now.
Okay.
Yeah, I just need to choose my
Oh, that's
virtual
gonna keep
background
going,
now.
isn't it?
Kind of funny.
Going, isn't it?
Kind of funny. Kind of funny. Kind of funny. Kind of funny.
Okay. Okay, I can also hear myself in an echo. Okay, I can also hear myself in an echo. Okay, I can also hear myself in an echo.
That's interesting.
I can also hear myself.
That's interesting. We're just casually chatting.
Ah, yeah. Okay, good. Okay.
We're just casually
Okay.
chatting.
I need to. Yeah. Okay, see. Good. Okay. I need to. Yeah. See. Good. Okay. I need to. Yeah.
I think there's someone on us who's watching on YouTube. I think there's someone on us who's watching on YouTube.
Yeah, I think Gemma is going to check out the meeting 15. I think Gemma is
There's
going
anybody
to check
who
out
writes
the
questions, I think.
That's the role.
Somebody who writes
Yes, that's my role.
So
Then I think maybe you need to mute yourself because we will double here. That's maybe why we hear the echo. If you try to mute yourself, Gemma, let's see how it looks. If you try to mute yourself, Gemma, let's see how it looks. If you try to mute yourself, Gemma, let's see how it looks. Doesn't make a difference, right?
No, because it's not. There's no other sound coming out of my
Doesn't make a
computer.
difference, right?
No, because it's not. There's no other sound coming out of my
Doesn't make a
computer.
difference. Oh.
Because it's not.
Okay. This is and we wanted to make sure that everybody's not opening the YouTube or meeting 15 on the Mac. Everybody's not opening the YouTube or meeting 15 on the Mac.
I don't have any meeting 15 on YouTube on the back. I don't have any meeting 15 on YouTube on the back.
All right.
Well, I guess we have to get used to it, and everyone's watching now probably. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to Few Event. We are checking all this tech, what's going on, right? This is the first time we're using the tech, so bear with us. We're making sure everything's gonna be fine, and I have all my lovely co-boards on the board at the lounge, and we welcome you to our Few event hosted by Meeting 15. Hello, everyone. Say hello, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Hi, good evening.
Now we don't have an echo. We're great.
All good now.
All good. All great. Are you guys excited for tonight's event?
I'm excited.
Super excited, right? And we have sent our members the few bags and goodies.
Yep. It's hard to see it, right? With the virtual background. Whoopsie.
Hard to see on the virtual background, but I hope everyone will see their few
Difficult.
goodies. Our 40th, in celebration for our 40th anniversary. If anyone can write down, I know we can't see it right now, but if anyone can write down on, it's going to be on YouTube, right? Where are their locations? It will be amazing. Write in your comments. What are you looking forward to tonight's event?
I hope everybody is aware that you can write in the comment on the Meeting 15.
Yeah,
There's
I actually checking out the chat group on Meeting 15. Probably you see in the chat box on the probably right bottom. So I am checking in. So it will be great to hear where you are and just say hello.
Yes, because we have hundreds of signups for our event tonight. So we really want to know, where are you coming from? So while Maki-san is checking out all the comments, please do write and have a few, as we have a few minutes of time before we start on the event.
Hi Yui and Sarah. Aguri.
Hey, Sarah.
My pronunciation is bad. Sorry. And yeah, some people say that the music a little bit loud. So if you think same, maybe we can turn it down.
Yeah, the music's gonna stop at 7. So it's gonna be 7 more minutes.
But thank you for letting us know about the music, because we have no idea
How it sounds.
Oh yeah.
Oh, thank you for joining from Kawasaki City, Brisbane, Australia, Tokyo.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We're going global.
all the way from Australia.
Woohoo!
Hello from Tokyo. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us.
Keep the comments coming. Keep the comments and write down where you're from. We want to hear from you.
Yeah.
We've got so many Tokyoites here, but I'm really keeping an eye out for somebody not in Tokyo. How many of us who aren't in Tokyo?
I'm in Kawasaki.
I'm next door to Kawasaki. That's right. We're neighbors.
Okay, this is Maki from Fukuoka City.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, what about you? Somebody from Kyushu or maybe Shikoku, Chugoku?
Aomori or
Sorry.
Oh my
Wow,
God.
Helen, thank you for joining
Helen.
from UK.
Long time
You
no
too,
see,
yay.
Helen. Oh my,
Helen.
that's
my
a
God,
former
Helen.
Hugh. Yeah. Good to
Former
see you,
Hugh.
Helen.
Yay! Thank you for joining us today.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining us, and we can't wait to start the event. We still have 5 more minutes, so please keep in your comments. Oh, tell us where you're from and what are you looking forward to tonight's event. And be sure to check out all the informations on meeting 15. You can check out everyone's profiles. You can also check out Few. If you haven't followed Few Japan's, we have the landing page right now, right, Maki, on posted. We're releasing it today, right?
And probably you'll see the survey box pop-in app in a meeting 15. So it would be great to fill it, and love to see where you are. And probably we have a lot of people joining us tonight outside of Tokyo and also maybe outside of Japan.
Maki, we have somebody from Zimbabwe tonight. Or today, in that case.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
We're around the globe. That's so happy to hear.
Yeah, lovely.
Is there somebody joining us tonight? Maybe from outer space? No?
Outer space?
No. Who knows, Maki-san? You never know. But also follow our social media accounts. On LinkedIn, we have our official group. On Facebook, we have our official page. We also have our, of course, Instagram. And we're going to start on releasing information on our YouTube channel and Twitter account. So stay tuned for that. And just follow our all social medias. What do you have, Maki-san? Is there anyone else like writing on the chat board?
Yeah, I see. Hi, Michelle from Zimbabwe. And then also, thank you for joining us. I got a comment on, hi everyone, I'm here for the first time.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Who is that, Maki-san?
Cheryl?
Welcome, Cheryl.
Yay!
Welcome.
Yeah, besides our members of View, we have a lot of, because this is a public-facing event, so we have a lot of new sign-up. Hopefully they'll join us, and hopefully they'll enjoy our event tonight.
Great.
I think now we don't have the background music. I guess we have to.
Yes, it disappeared.
It disappeared. Totally disappeared.
It was very nice lounge music.
Yes.
Very nice. Yeah, we would like to thank Meeting 15 for for building up all this. This is our first time doing this with Meeting 15, and it's been such a lot of work, but it's all worth it.
Sharon, yeah, thank you for joining us. She's from Tokyo. Great.
All right, 2 more minutes.
Yes.
2 more minutes and we're getting started.
Start this show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for joining us from all over the world.
Yeah.
We're starting in 1 more minute.
Also would like to thank our sponsors, Tia, right?
Yeah. I can give them a quick shout out. So if you haven't already, on the Meeting 15 page, there's a next button. If you go ahead and click that next button a couple of times, you'll see the page dedicated to our corporate members. So you'll see at the top, there's Jarman International with some of the things that they're promoting right now. And that after that, followed by Jarman is Volkswagen Group, KK, and what they're doing this spring season. And then under that, you'll see some of our organizational members. You can click on those icons and just see what their mission's about, what services and products they offer. And it's a really, really great page to just learn more about the people and the organizations that really help us thrive. So if you're curious about who's in our network and who's in our organization, you can go ahead and hit that next button a couple of times and then check them out.
Thank you so much, Tia. And now we're finally going to start the event, and we welcome Tracy.
During the lounge. This is not your average Zoom call. We want you to be clicking around. We want you to be multitasking. Have a look at the agenda down below. Have a look at the buttons along the side. Click through and discover more about our speakers and our organization. And also you can see our corporate sustaining members, as Tia was saying. So everything you see can be clicked on, and also this content will be there for you for when you want to come back and maybe review the panel and also see who else is around. We also want you to network with each other. So if you can click on the participants, and I think it's on that side, I'm not quite sure. But if you click on the participants, you can see who's in the room. I encourage you to update your own profile with some fun facts about yourself. Think of it like your LinkedIn profile. If you've got an ask, maybe there's someone who also in the audience who can deliver. And take a look around and see who else is in the audience. So there is a live chat running down the bottom. It's public facing and everybody can see it. So my rule of thumb is don't put anything in the chat that you wouldn't want your mum to read in the newspaper. So be careful about that. There is also right below me an ask the question button. This is where you can put a question to any of us on the panel here. So we'll have a live Q&A a bit later. So think about some questions, burning questions that you want to ask, and drop them in there, and we will moderate them and we'll actually work them into the program. This is live, folks. We are flying without a net, and so I will now pass it off to Dr. Jackie Steele, who is the President and Representative Director of FEW Japan. Jackie.
Wonderful. And thank you to Tracy, who is our program director, Tracy Northcott, really a tech diva, I've got to say. So much of building this with Meeting 15 has been possible thanks to Tracy's really amazing skills to pull all this together and to build on the back end. So really wonderful thanks to Tracy, and thank you for the interaction. Of course, this event is commemorating and marking that it is Women's History Month. It is the March, March, and the month of March is really when we start thinking about International Women's Day, and some make it a month-long celebration, not a lifelong, wouldn't that be wonderful? But a month-long celebration of women's equality, of gender equality, of women's leadership, of women's empowerment, of moving the dial on this important topic for democracy, for society, for corporations, for civil society, for all parts of what we are building for change. So it is also a time when many women's organizations have events. It's a chance to, raise the bar and raise profile and give our issues that we're working on to get them on the radar of companies and governments and of organizations who maybe normally are not focusing on gender equality. Maybe they're not focused on women's empowerment, but the month of March, we tend to shine a spotlight on this important topic, how to build an equitable democratic society and culture. It really needs constant caregiving, constant and consistent investments of money, of time and energy. And of course, the FEW Japan Board of Directors and all of our members, the committed individuals, over 150 women across Japan, our organizational members, our corporate sustaining members, our community that believes in our mission in Japan. We're really grateful to have that support, because it is really now, as a multi-stakeholder community, that FEW Japan is really building for change, to not only offer peer-to-peer networking for individual women, but also to provide opportunities for networking horizontally and laterally across all different stakeholders in society. We wish to highlight the financial contributions of our corporate sustaining members, Jarman International and Audi Japan Volkswagen Group, of Wall and Case and Place to Grow, as well as the organizational members that have given in-kind contributions that have been invaluable. Why do we focus on diversifying tech? And this is something we've been building for 4 years. We've started this conversation in 2018 with a wonderful event. It was an in-person event that sold out, Tokyo chapter in Roppongi, when we could be in person. And we discussed the role of the evolution from being CEOs to CEOs, and what does that mean for diversifying the world of entrepreneurialism. We also co-hosted an event with the Canadian Embassy that was looking at innovation through diversity, and what does that mean to build innovation with the diverse richness of all of the voices at the table. We built a wonderful event around DXing in Japan and where are the opportunities for women. And of course, this year in 2022, we're talking about diversifying tech and women in STEAM. And what the heck is STEAM? Some of you may know it as STEM. And so what the conversation is shifting around STEM is that certainly science and technology, engineering and math, those are really important areas for women to have more representation and for have more diversity brought in. But the arts is also really a key part. And so STEAM with the arts, A for the arts, is trying to connect the dots on what we also need to bring in terms of wisdom from the arts, from the humanities, from languages. Languages code, cultures are based on norms, and norms are codes. So all of this comes together and moves the dial and how we think about thought diversity and how we can think forward to really think about how we're going to build a much more robust competition of ideas and collegial exchange and learning around all of these subjects and disciplines. And on that note, I would now like to hand over to Tracy, my co-moderator, co-conspirator, partner in crime tonight, to kick off our wonderful panel with a powerhouse group of speakers. Tracy, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jackie. I've got to keep finding my mute button here. So thank you very much. You've really set the stage so beautifully. I wanted to also just take a moment and thank the organizations from our speakers. They've been very kind and let us borrow them for today. So I want to show our appreciation for Le Wagon, Code Chrysalis, WISJ, WICCI, and the Black Engineers of Canada. We really appreciate that you're here today. I also really want to have a shout out to our co-branding sponsors. So these are our civil society collaborators. So FEW Japan wants to collaborate and invite other civil society change agents who share our values. And so we're grateful for the PR support from the following organizations. LLAN, so the Lawyers for LGBT and Allies Network, the Women Empowered International, and I can't pronounce this. This is French, so I will butcher it. I am sorry. Femmes Activistes Japon. Jackie, you should have done that one. You speak French.
Femmes Actives Japon. We're good, Tracy.
FAGE and also Sisterhood Japan. So we really appreciate the amplification and the support that you gave for this event. And we look forward to doing more with you in the future. So if you've been looking at our poster and looking at our social media, you can see that we've got a really interesting panel of experts lined up. And so I will pass to people who know much more about this than I do. So let me introduce you to Rejeanne Amy. She's the founding director of the Black Engineers of Canada and a licensed professional engineer. I invite you to click on her bio. So like I said, we want you to be clicking around. We want you to be learning more about the people on this panel. So if you're down the bottom there, you will find Rejeanne's name. Click on that and you will see her bio. You'll be able to click around and see all about her and while she is speaking. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Rejeanne, and here we go.
Thank you, Tracy, and good evening, everybody. It is such a pleasure for me to be here with you this evening during Women's History Month as you celebrate International Women's Day. I come to you today from Toronto, Canada, which is located on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat Indigenous peoples, and is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. As I stand on their traditional land, I pay respect to their elders past, present, and emerging. And I ask that we all respect the land and traditions of those who walked upon it for millennia before us. My name is Rejan Amy, and I'm a professional engineer. Here in Canada, we celebrated International Women's Day on March 8th. And this is usually a time of reflection and the celebration for many of us as we honor the achievements of many women who have contributed significantly to society in various arenas, but also we celebrate ourselves and those close to us for the many strides we collectively have made as a gender, no matter how small. As we all know, there was a time when women's contributions rarely left the important work in the home. Many women will acknowledge the challenge of balancing work, social, and family life, but yet we still do it to honor that part of ourselves that yearns to make a contribution for a better, more well-balanced world for our children. Part of that well-balanced world requires acknowledging and respecting the contributions of all so that we all coexist in environments conducive to development of spaces that are rich in our collective heritage. Engineering is a calling that has always been a male-dominated profession, and it still is. However, many strides have been made for the inclusion of women and those from other underrepresented groups, signaling openness to developing a collective open to the best thinking of all of its peoples. This is essential as we shape our society and ensures it is supported by as many views as possible as we become engineers to improve the lives of others, to innovate, to protect the public interests, and to increase their earning potential. In Canada, diversity means engaging the best minds in the profession, and this includes women, those from underrepresented groups, including Indigenous peoples, and internationally educated professionals. Let me share my experience of engineering school and the workplace with you. I attended one of the top 10 schools for engineering in the country, Western University. When I entered engineering school, I was the only woman of color in my year and the engineering school. And by estimate, the percentage of women was around 10% in my class. Regarding LGBTQ2+, so that would be lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and two-spirit people, I did not observe anyone who fell into this category, which of course is not an indication of their presence. Regardless, our university programs consisted of co-ops and internships to ensure we had an understanding of the workplace prior to graduation and to assist us in determining the areas we'd like to work in once we graduated. In work life, in every workplace, I have always been one of two women of color, but mostly the only woman of color. And by estimate, the percentage of women in general ranged from around 5% to 10% in core engineering jobs to approximately 10% in non-core engineering jobs. Regarding LGBTQ2+, I would estimate that they were in proportion to me. That is, there were one or two people who openly presented that way. Women make up more than 50% of the population, yet my experience only represents 10% in the workplace. This is not to say that all women should be in the workplace, as some simply aren't interested. However, for those who are, efforts are in progress to improve the recruitment, retention, and professional development of women on a national scale. There are several engineering organizations in Canada who are working to further improve diversity in Canada. One such organization, Engineers Canada's Diversity Strategy, fosters the development of the engineer by building alliances and relationships to deliver activities, services, and initiatives by first developing a love for STEAM subjects, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and math, so that they will continue on to engineering at university level and then into their careers. To achieve this, there are three important areas of focus. The first is developing men as allies by encouraging men and boys to be active supporters of women empowerment and to question how to define the values of manhood and perceive workplace culture. The second is conducting research on women in engineering, understanding the participation rates and the barriers and tactics for women in the workplace. And third, celebrating International Women in Engineering Day on June 23rd every year. This is an opportunity to shine a spotlight on the achievements of women in engineering. What still needs to be done is to research and collect data to define a baseline so that we can improve. Many schools, corporations, and not-for-profit organizations are starting to define what will be collected, and we look forward to further improvements in the future. We have made significant strides compared to 100 years ago, but there is still much work to be done. Thank you so very much for inviting me to address you today, and I look forward to any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Rejan, for really speaking to what is the experience that I can imagine many in the audience, many of the women in the audience, I'm sure that what you've mentioned resonated. And as you speak about being the only Black woman in the room, or one of two at best, in terms of the underrepresentation you've experienced in those fields and in where you've been engaging professionally. Women, of course, in Japan often are finding themselves as being one of few women in the room. And in fact, that's the reason why our name in the beginning was Foreign Executive Women, and it was just a few women. And really, foreign women in particular in Japan are often the only woman in the room, or one of two in the room, despite the fact that women are bringing in different nationalities, different ethnocultural backgrounds in Japan within the foreign national community, and Japanese women as well, often having work experience abroad, and they are the internationally talented, experienced talent that then comes back to Japan and feels a little bit like a fish out of water, not finding the same support for the values that they've experienced abroad. And certainly, I've spent time in academia where I was always the only foreign national woman on faculty in my institute. I was the only queer woman in my institute, which had roughly 45 or 50 nationals, professors. So certainly that kind of conspicuousness of always being extremely visible, hyper visible almost, because we are the few in the room, it's challenging. And then being able to shine for your individuality rather than for your group identity becomes the double burden that we carry when we're in those spaces where we're seen to be representing our whole group rather than just our individuality and ourselves. So these are the challenges that we've experienced. And I think, your comments about how diversity is thought about in Canada, including Indigenous peoples, including all of the perspectives of LGBTQ within the industry, and the internationally talented and trained that come to Canada. I think that's a really interesting point for us to think forward about in terms of how Japan also welcomes, I guess, what we would call foreign talent in Japan. Certainly, in political science where I was, it was very rare to be a woman in political science and in law. So I think our next speaker, I'm excited to introduce, who's going to build forward and share about also what is the scenario within the Japanese university system. I know what my experience was in law and political science. I don't know what was happening in STEM fields and in these areas of science and natural science. So it is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Sarah Abe, who is the advisor for Women in Science Japan, and she will shed light on their important work as an organization working to really build a more welcoming space for women in natural science and women in STEAM in Japan. Sarah, the floor is yours.
So thank you, Jackie and Tracy, for the kind invitation and the whole board of few. And I was actually at the same university as Jackie, and I can attest that in the School of Medicine, there was a 20-fold difference between men and women professors. So I'd like to, without further ado, briefly introduce the organization I'm representing, Women in Science Japan, to hopefully fill this void of lack of representation of women in the sciences at Japanese universities and institutes as a whole in the field of STEM. So Kyoko, could you share my slides, please? Thank you. Next, please. So this is a photo from our first launch event around 2 years ago. This was pre-pandemic, clearly, at the University of Tokyo. And we really focus on high school and university students. So that's one of the points that I'd like to emphasize here, starting girls at a very young age, and boys too, of course, but to be interested in STEM fields and recognizing that girls and women can also have successful careers in these fields. We'd like to build connections with different professionals and providing support and resources within this group and also connecting with other groups. And we also provide a platform. So we have an active Facebook group, Instagram, LinkedIn, and 3 different types of events. Next, please. This was from an in-person event we held last year. So I'd like to give a shout out to my co-advisor and co-founder, Elizabeth Oda, who is an AI engineer, and also to our student representatives at the University of Tokyo, Mahi, and Noe and Rie at ASIJ and the British School. Next, please. So in terms of what we do, I'd like to just give a brief overview. We have in-person and virtual events. So we actually have an upcoming event, April 23rd, which will be a resume building workshop for high school and undergraduate students. And if anyone's interested in joining as a volunteer or interested in hearing more about our organization, feel free to message either myself or Elizabeth on Meetup 15. We also have a mentorship program, especially for high school and undergraduate students, that is mostly spearheaded by Elizabeth. And we recently partnered with Harvard Global We for an essay competition, and we're looking forward to expanding that program, starting some more essay competitions on what challenges women face in Japan particularly. So it's an international competition, but they're just starting some competitions in schools in Japan. And then we also have informal meetups, so to serve as a networking platform and family-friendly events. And we found that these are also very welcome, particularly in times of COVID when it's hard to meet people in person. So hopefully we can meet some of you in the near future. Next, please. So if you'd like to join us, feel free to check out our website, Facebook group, Instagram, LinkedIn, or email, or you can also message us on Meetup 15. And I'm really looking forward to connecting with many of you. So I'd like to just, we were supposed to finish our presentations with a few take-home messages. So starting at a really early age, the interest in STEM, I think that's come up in several of our previous events, even earlier than high school. And then also career paths. I think that's also really important. So not just getting female students into universities, but then postdoc positions, assistant professors, or also in the pharmaceutical industry into higher level executive positions. So this career trajectory and not just studying STEM. And then finally, also as a working mother, I think flexibility in STEM fields is really important. So those are my 3 takeaways: young age and flexibility and career paths. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. I just wanted to follow up with a little bit on what you and the work that you and Elizabeth are doing. I think it's really important that spearheading with high school and younger students. When I was in high school in the last century, seriously, it was the last century, I was at a girls only school, and STEM was encouraged. It was just, that you chose the subjects that you like to do, or at least it wasn't actively discouraged. But unfortunately, we didn't get any other preparation of what it was like outside of our beautiful bubble of being in an all-girls school. So I just remember the first day of my chemistry degree at university, the lecturer looked me in the eye and said, "Are you sure that you want to do a physical science? We normally find that girls, oh my God, can you stand? We normally find that girls are better in the biological science." No word of a lie. Somebody said this to me in the first day of my chemistry degree. I was stunned, but I wasn't dissuaded. I kept going. And 3 years later, I was one of 4 women who graduated from a class of over 400, a class of over 100 with a degree in organic synthetic chemistry. But that's enough about me. We've had a number of speakers at few events over the years to confirm that the role models is the real key to change. So for women to see what they can be, and also for everyone else to have this diversity just normalized, then it allows for talent to shine. I'm now going to pass on to our next speaker, Shirley Kotian. Shirley is an absolute rock star. She is a full stack engineer at Rakuten and also the vice president of the Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce. So we will transition to Shirley. So over to you.
Hello, everyone. And yeah, thanks so much for having me as one of the panelists here. And yeah, I would really like to thank few organizers who are doing an amazing job organizing this event, right from marketing to bringing us on board and making sure everything is working. Thank you. And yeah, I'm so honored to be a part of this panel. I look up to almost everyone who's in this panel. So I'm really glad to be here. And also, a big thank you to all the participants for taking the time and just, going through this event. And yeah, I would like to start with my presentation. Kyoko-san, if you would. Yeah, thank you so much. So I'd like to speak about diversifying tech through bilateral business councils. Next slide, please. So a little bit about myself. I work as a software developer. Recently, I work more as a product and project manager at corporate IT department in Rakuten. But I also work as, in my free time, in the weekends, I work as vice president for Wiki. Wiki is Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. If you go to the next slide, I would just like to give a brief introduction of Wiki. So what we do is we are building and promoting women through greater engagement with government, embassies, and mostly trying to work with them to improve women and relationships with in gender parity. So as you can see, we recently, due to COVID and border closures, we have put some things on hold, but our main aim is to increase mentorship for women in tech. We also have some life and career coaches in our team. So we want to offer mentorship in that. We also have a ton of conferences. Also, a really massive network of over 250,000 women over in 120 countries. And we would also like to have collaborations with different countries and different chamber of commerces as well. Next slide, please. So if you can see this graph, it's a little difficult to see it at first, but the green part of it shows people who are working in engineering, law, accounting, mostly STEM, and the gray part represents education or social work. So as you can see, Japan is really low. It is less than 2% of women who work in such jobs. Next slide, please. And also, if you see at this, in this slide, the percentage of women going towards engineering degree is 16%, which was lowest amongst the OECD, which is the economic organization, the countries that come in that group. So it's also really low. If you go to the next slide. Yeah, so what are the steps that we can take towards bringing more equity in tech? First up is education, right from the beginning. Next, I really like this word, which is returnships, because for women, it's natural to take breaks. For example, maternity breaks. So making it normal to have women come back and get in the same pace is also a step that we can take towards equity. And Japan does a really good job at paid childcare for men and women. And yeah, this is another step towards bringing equality, having equitable compensation, making sure that there is transparency in pay, and having role models, just as Tracy mentioned. Next slide, please. A point that talks about how you can reach the top in tech being a woman. So make sure that your ambition is known and you raise your hand for things that you're really passionate about. Reach outside your organization, even if it's not in your current department, and ensure that you have relationships with people that can help you network in the future. Next slide, please. Next is, I would like to talk about ways that men can be better allies for women. First of all, please advocate for gender equitable policies in the workplace. Reflect on your own power and privilege as a man. Celebrate, because as many women spoke before me, we are probably one of the very few women in the whole team. So if you celebrate and publicly acknowledge us, it's going to encourage women in tech. And also, please, if possible, encourage mentorship opportunities. Next slide, please. Yeah, if you want to know more about the organization, if you want to know more about tech and how to break into tech, I'm more than happy to have a chat. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. And we also have a wiki page, so please feel free to go ahead and send a message there as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shirley. And, it's when I first met you and you started, I already knew you were amazing and full stack engineer. Wow. But also when you started to share to me about how you were trying to change the pipeline to bring more women into STEAM fields through this backdoor, bilateral effort to Japan and India bilateral relations, I was like, Banzai, that's wonderful. You were probably the only other person who I'd met in Japan who was using, those diplomatic channels as a space of change agency and advocacy. And certainly I've been building for, Japan-Canada relations to try and get diversity on the conversation in Japan. And often by hosting things with the Canadian Embassy or with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, it opened up a space where, Japanese political leaders would come in and be willing to come into the Canadian space and listen and want to learn about it. And so I think it's such an important space for change. And I was thrilled and think that the work you're doing is really phenomenal. And I'm so excited that you were able to come and share about that today.
Thank you.
We are going to shift gears a little bit towards thinking about, of course, the goal is to think about multi-stakeholder partnerships. For those of us who are interested in the Sustainable Development Goals and building, SDG 17 is about building partnerships for change and partnerships for the goals that we're setting out. And certainly in terms of gender equality, private sector partners are really important stakeholders. And I, in my other actual hat, also work a lot with companies in Japan around diversity and equity. And I know that there's a lot of companies with political leadership and, senior leadership, top tone from the top being really committed and wanting to move the dial in their own organizations. And we're going to hear from two amazing private sector partners in crime who are really interested in moving the dial for gender equality and diversifying tech. And so I would love to now hand over to Kani Munidasa, who is the CEO and co-founder of Code Chrysalis. The floor is now yours, Kenny, so that you can inspire us for the work that you have been working on, both with Yan Fan as your co-founder, and also just yourself and your leadership role as CEO. So the floor is yours. Ken, hey, I think you might be muted.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me now? All right. First and foremost, it's an honor and a pleasure to be here. I am so excited and a bit nervous, to be very honest. But it is a pleasure to be amongst you all and be one of the panelists today. My name is Kani. Jackie introduced me as the co-founder and CEO of Code Chrysalis. We are a software engineering bootcamp here in Tokyo. We started 5 years ago with a mission of creating software engineering leaders in Japan that can make Japan a technology leader again. We, however, learned very fast even before starting the program, that diversity in tech was non-existent in Japan. I mean, in the engineering field, as many have already spoken about, lack a lot of women already, even in other countries. But coming to Japan, we realized how compounded or how many folds that problem was larger. So we, and I'm going to say we, myself and Yan Fan, my co-founder, who actually did a lot of work even in the US to empower women and to bring more women into tech, the tech industry. We set out this, we made it a mission from day one to diversify the tech industry here in Japan. And yes, and how we are doing that is basically by two ways. One is, of course, by creating a pipeline of women that can join our software engineering bootcamp and graduate as full stack software engineers that can work as an engineer day one after graduation, writing production level code. So it took us about 3 years, but we were finally able to have our first class of more than 50% women. That was not a fluke. Yan and the team and myself, we worked on many different angles and things that kind of helped us get there. And I'm happy to talk about more of that during this panel discussion. The other way is, of course, looking at our company itself. Like Jackie mentioned, we have the opportunity as a company to look at how we are doing against our DEI challenges and goals. And by doing so, kind of showcasing or becoming an example that others may want to follow suit. I myself am right now going through a 6 months DEI program. And despite having worked in Silicon Valley for so many years, we should not feel complacent, or we should not feel like we have a good understanding of these problems and should never rest. So with that said, I'll make my intro short and pass it on to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. And I believe we will be hearing from our one last special speaker, and I would like to actually invite Tracy to do the special introduction for Sasha. Tracy, the floor is yours.
Just looking at the live stream, haven't got me in there, but that's all good. I would like to introduce, I hope you can hear me, I'd like to introduce Sasha from the Wagon. We're especially grateful to Sasha tonight as she's calling in from the Ukraine. She's traveled there from Japan to assist her fellow Ukrainians for a humanitarian mission. This is an extremely stressful time. When we put this panel together back in January, when I asked Sasha to join, the world was a very, very different place. So much has happened, but we're so grateful, Sasha, that you have committed to us and that you're here, and we're here in solidarity with you. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jackie, Tracy, and the whole FEW team. I'm very excited to be with you here today. Right, let me introduce myself quickly. My name is Sasha. I'm Ukrainian. Today I'm representing Levagon Tokyo Coding Bootcamp. And also I am helping foreign entrepreneurs relocate to Japan as part of the Shibuya City Startup Initiative. And as Tracy mentioned, right now I'm in Ukraine. I flew here a couple of days ago to help with a humanitarian mission. So if you hear air raid sirens sounding from my back, I might need to excuse myself and leave for the shelter, but hope everything will be okay. Kyoko, could you please share my screen? Cool, thank you so much. Okay, so back to the subject. Today I'm representing Levagon Tokyo Coding Bootcamp. So similar to Code Chrysalis, we are teaching people how to build web applications from scratch during our web development bootcamps, and also how to use, analyze, and manipulate data during our data science bootcamps. We do it in two formats. One is a full-time, and also there's a part-time for those with a family and work commitments. And myself, I went through the part-time web development bootcamp last year. Next slide, please. Thank you. We are a global tech educational institution, originally from Paris, France, started 8 years ago. And right now we have campuses in 44 cities around the world and over 13,000 people who graduated from both our web development and data science programs. We are very much product-oriented program. During the bootcamp program, 90% of the time, our students are coding, building the web applications, and that results in a huge number of startups built by our alumni during and after the bootcamp. Next slide, please. And as any educational institution teaching people tech, we are facing the challenges of how to encourage more women in Japan to go into tech. We started from a very low number of 24% of women graduates, and we slowly moving forward. For the last 4 batches, batch means group, we had 31% of women, and for some particular batches, I believe for part-time, we reached the 50%, but unfortunately, this is not what we have for all the programs. That's why we are really striving to reach this gender parity. And if you look at the next slide, please. There is so much actually we can work towards too. If you look at these numbers, these are representing the women graduates in the campuses of Levagon around the globe. And for example, our European counterparts, London, Marseille, France, and also Amsterdam, Montreal in Canada, and also Melbourne in Australia, they have much higher numbers of the women graduates than in Tokyo, Japan. And from our side, I define that there are a couple of reasons that might be resulting in such a low number of the women graduates. So first of all, as a person who did a 1-year research on the gender discrimination in Japan at Doshishi University in Kyoto, I know that there is a huge social pressure on women in Japan. And there is also a very strict distinction between Rikei, which is sciences, and also Bunkei, which is humanities. And women are typically expected to follow their Bunkei humanities path, and no one thinks that they definitely can, first of all, follow the Rikei path, or they can switch their career into tech in the middle of their career. And the second reason that I would like to highlight is also a lack of woman-friendly tech companies in Japan. Of course, there are some, but I would say that the most tech companies that I know, they're heavily male-dominated. And a lot of our graduates, the women graduates, they would like to work at the companies that they provide a very good woman-friendly environment after they graduate from the bootcamp. They want to see a good woman-to-men ratio. They want companies who support them, the companies who provide them with a maternity leave, women who have some understanding. For example, the previous speaker mentioned a very good word, returnships. I really like it. Thank you so much. Returnships, I would say this is very important for companies too. Next slide, please. Despite that, I still see a lot of amazing women who are switching their careers into tech. And if you go to the next slide, the majority of our graduates, they choose the developer's path. And the next slide, please. We also have women who decide to juggle both a business and tech career, so they become a product manager. And the next slide, please. Also, we have some women who decide to dive into the entrepreneurship and they launch their own startups like Nozomi. Thank you. Next slide. And how at Le Wagon we are trying to tackle this challenge. Of course, me being a community builder, I try to organize as many events, as many workshops for women possible. I try to write as many content. I try to show as many role models as possible to motivate women to go into tech. Right now, we're in talks also with several companies who probably could help us with some financing, with some scholarship with women. Next slide, please. Yeah, these are just examples of the women events that we are running. Of course, due to the COVID, most of the events that we ran were online. But last December, we ran first women-only coding workshop, 2 hours, how to build your first website with HTML, CSS. We had 20 amazing women who came to make their first steps into tech, and it was really cool. Next step. Thank you so much. So if there are any companies among the audience who would like to collaborate with us, feel free to reach out to me. Next slide. Here are my content. Here are my contacts. Thank you so much for giving me a chance to talk today.
Thank you so much, Sasha. And I think what's really wonderful and interesting is to see, of course, the work and the different trends worldwide in the different markets where you're intervening. And certainly, of course, it's really important to both have co-ed spaces where women's presence in those spaces is normalized, where women and men learn to be, working alongside with women and to know that is an actual usual thing that's not sort of rare and token. But it's also really important to have women-only coding spaces, women-only coding boot camps. FU Japan is a women-only space, women-only member-serving space, because it's also important to have that safe space where you can sort of be in the majority and where you can really just let go of, your gender is just not even part of the conversation because everyone's a woman in the room and identifies with that space, and it falls to the backdrop and you can just be an individual. So both of those dynamics are really important. I really appreciated how you mentioned the work that you're doing in both of those spaces. At this point, I would now love to hand over to Tracy because we are going to get into a rapid fire panel.
So while things are going on in the background, I shall just talk. We will very soon, you'll see all of us up in the windows, and we will have some rapid fire. These have been pre-prepared, so there's no surprises. But if you have other questions that you would like us to answer live, we have some time a little bit further down in the program, and that we will get to those questions. So feel free to use that question box down below and ask those burning questions. Make sure you get what you came for. You've chosen to spend your time with us. Make sure that you get your maximum benefit out of it by asking those juicy questions. So I think the gods are working feverishly in the background, and soon we will all be up on screen. Here we are, magic. So let me kick it off. So all of our windows are ready to go. We are like the Brady Bunch in here, aren't we, with all of our little windows? Actually, a lot of people, showing my age here, a lot of people don't know the Brady Bunch. So I'm just going to kick this off. Firstly, to Rejan and to Sarah, what is the role of universities for changing the pipeline and changing the norms about who can be a leader in STEM and STEAM? Rejan, then Sarah.
Thanks so much, Tracy, for that question. So I think it's a really important one. The universities have a very important role to play. First off, they definitely should embrace students by fostering, environments of openness and inclusion from the time they enter the institutions. This would include students from all groups and providing leadership assignments within the school's administrative framework. Because I think that it makes it very obvious to everyone in the school, that this is part of the ecosystem of, whatever the subject matter may be. And it sort of gets everybody accustomed to seeing all different types within the workplace and within the school as well. I also think that, they should encourage and incentivize employers to hire students for, co-ops and temporary work placements from all groups. I think that, they do have some leverage there with those employers, and they should definitely use it. And finally, I think they should prepare all students for work, especially considering that, a lot of women and people from underrepresented groups, and which would include LGBTQ2+, they may not have networks or support, to assist in job search and preparation. So I think that if the schools were able to address some of these issues, I think the workplace would be much different, and we would definitely be preparing leaders in STEM from all groups across the board.
And Sarah.
Thank you, Rajan. I completely agree with all of those points, and I'd like to add a few of my own from my experience as a PhD student and then also as an assistant professor at the University of Tokyo. I think the university does play a critical role because it's that transition from childhood to adulthood, and helping students at an individual level, and then also how to be meaningful members in their society. I think getting back to the point of having role models is really important. So it starts, of course, with the acceptance. So I think those of you in Japan heard that several universities were criticized for not accepting all of the female students who had actually passed the entrance exams. So I think that is one point to work on. Then also beyond just students, grad students, postdocs, assistant professor, I think working into those leadership positions, so full-time professors who are on the committees, then also the executive positions, deans, presidents of universities, particularly in Japan, there's a huge gap how many women are in those leadership roles. So specifically working at the universities, but like Rajan said, also preparing female students to, when they enter the job force in different industries, to work into these leadership roles, and also not to be shy to voice their opinions, I think is really important. So the universities play a critical role, and I think change is happening slowly, step by step in Japan, and I think we can contribute to that. Thank you, and I'd like to hand off to Jackie.
Thank you, Sarah. And I couldn't agree more in terms of, what you've mentioned in terms of also building the pipeline within the university system so that we're having graduate students turn into postdocs, turn into actually junior scholars and getting the tenure track positions. And too often we see in the Japanese national system that the foreign faculty and the women faculty are in contract positions. So the numbers are temporarily being inflated through contracts. But they're actually not long-term permanent hires that can change the face of the university and build that track record all the way up to become the deans, to then go into those leadership positions within the university, and bringing that thought diversity all the way through the chains of leadership and those channels. So certainly that's, I think, one area where we need to keep pushing on Japan and the Japanese national university system and private universities as well. And I think one other interesting tidbit that I was reading from a fellow Japan scholar, Dr. Richard Katz, was, research that actually out of the OECD, surprisingly, Japan is the second lowest in terms of its funding, public funding for education. And so I think we can keep pushing also on the importance of having tax dollars, really these important tax dollars, supporting public education from elementary school all the way through to the university system to lower the cost burden for families. And that has, of course, an equalizing effect that allows a greater number of families to feel that they can send their children to the university system and participate and benefit from these training areas for their sons and daughters in equal numbers. So another area we can work on and keep pressuring and raising the conversation and awareness about that. I want us to think about now, what are the other ways in which, of course, besides government and the university system, the private sector is has an important place to change the pipelines. So I'd like to call to Sasha to begin to talk to us about what is the role of private sector, coding schools or else in terms of changing pipelines and filling the gaps that are being created with a lack of sufficient individuals being trained through computer science and other fields through the university official channels or public channels. And after Sasha, if you could hand directly to Kenny.
Thank you so much for your question, Jackie. Indeed, I don't think that the coding boot camps would be able to replace public education universities, of course, but they are filling a gap that has been created by the public system. They are given an opportunity, a chance to people who missed the time to go and get their computer science degrees due to the various reasons. For example, at our bootcamp, we see people from the 18 to 50 years old, and they have so many different backgrounds. Some of them have been working as teachers, as marketeers, designers. Some of them have been coding by themselves, but they just didn't know that they could actually change and make it their own career. In the coding bootcamps, I feel that they really give them this opportunity. And also the feature of the coding bootcamps is that they're usually very short programs. So from 3 to 6 or 7 months that I've seen, the people would be able to catch up very quickly, and then they will be able to prolong their studies. They will be able to learn what they want to, and they won't be. They also will be able to, I would say, apply their newly acquired skills after the graduation from the boot camp. So yeah, thank you so much, and I give the microphone to Kani.
Sorry, guys, I'm on mute again. I guess you can hear me now. Yay, all right. Thanks, Sasha. Yeah, boot camps do have an opportunity to fill in the gaps. At Code Chrysalis, some of the things that we have done to date to increase and to build a pipeline of women into our admissions is through events. And Sasha mentioned this too, how powerful events can be. We do a few things that I would like to share with everybody that I think can practice. So basically, we do a lot of women-only events. So these are events that are done either just by Code Chrysalis or in partnership with other nonprofits that's working on, reducing this gap and making a safe place for women to come and be speakers and listeners. In terms of gender parity for events by a single speaker, we ensure that we have parity, meaning if we do 10 events, 5 of them will be led by women. So that is something that we definitely make an effort to do. When it is a panel event, we also make sure that's good representation. And I personally I decline panel events if there aren't any women in the panel. And I encourage every man to just basically say no to an event panel that's full of, like, I don't know, 40-year-old men. What other things we do? So we also, in order to make, coding bootcamps can be intimidating. It's a 3-month program. It's a very, you have to prep for it and come in and keep continuing to work with other men in the environment. So what have we done there? First of all, our staff is our instruction staff is about 40% plus women. And the company as a whole is actually 56% women. So the non-instruction staff that the students face too are mostly women. Our CTO and COO are amazing women. So these are some ways as the private sector can also, especially a school, things that a school can do to help the diversity gap. Sasha also mentioned we also partner with companies successfully to do scholarships, women-only scholarships. We've had magnificent success doing this with Toyota Research Institute, and some other companies. We also created, this was a Code Chrysalis initiative, but we created a fund last year called the Butterfly Fund, which was to basically put single mothers through our program. And we successfully graduated a few single mothers through this fund. One student, you probably may have already used the app, went on to create the Find a Doc Japan app, which many foreigners in Japan use to find to where they can get their first COVID shot. Amazing single mom, did the whole program while she was still attending to her child. We've had classes where we've had a single mom with a baby, 8-9-year-old, and as well as a teenager, so in the same class. So it's been an amazing outpour of interest. We recently donated, and this is something again we can all do as tech companies, give more back. We donated our foundation curriculum to an organization called Waffle, which is a nonprofit organization working to close the gender gap in IT, empowering technical teaching high school girls. So yeah, we just said, take it, do what you want with it. Let us know how much more we can help. And very exciting outcome recently. It's going to be the first cohort's going to start like in July of this year. We are working with an organization that's going to be creating Japan's first women-only software engineering bootcamp. So we are working to train their instructors, and of course we are giving them a curriculum for use. So that will be an exciting outcome as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kani. There's so many things that are coming out of this in terms of understanding and reaching out to, single mothers, but also to different, women, gendered identities as well, in terms of how it's creating a space. And that's really exciting to learn. So on that note, I would like to ask and turn a quick question to Shirley about just sort of where do you see, the space of diplomacy through chambers of commerce and your work, with the Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce. How can that help move the dial for our problems of democracy, not only for bilateral relations, but maybe also multilateral? Maybe you could share briefly some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question. Firstly, what is diplomacy? So diplomacy means that you're trying to influence decisions of foreign governments or even your own government through dialogue or negotiation. But another definition of diplomacy is the act of dealing with people in a sensitive and tactful way. So I think that makes more sense in this situation where you're being sensitive towards policymakers especially, but you're also telling them assertively that this is what is needed to make changes, So I think to bring any kind of real change, and especially to bring a quick change, there needs to be a top-down approach. We all are working really hard to make people hear our voices, to talk about gender equity, which is absolutely important because that's the way people are going to hear and understand. But we also need, diplomacy is one of the ways where top-down approaches works, I think. And yeah, the outcome of this is the countries that are more gender equal, they also tend to be highest on the happiness scale, if you check the rankings. So it's really not a zero-sum game. It's really a win-win situation. So having greater engagement with policymakers where more of those people talking to them are women, we just advocate for more rights, which will in turn bring equality, which in turn increases happiness scale, which is in turn a win-win situation, So yeah, I think that's what I feel about diplomacy in this game.
Thank you, Shirley. That's absolutely fascinating, and I'm sure that everybody got so much from that perspective. I'm going to switch it up a little bit now. I'm going to have a little slight change of speed. So if all the directors can turn your cameras on and have your swag handy, I'm going to ask the the meeting 15 guys to switch it up and have all of the directors up on screen in our boxes. I'll just keep talking. What we want to show is we want to show a photo of all of us holding our swag. Because this is our 40th anniversary, we asked our members, we went out and polled our members to vote on a new logo to signal our next 40 years of building change for Japan. So by popular vote, the results are what you can see. You can see the new backgrounds that we've got here and also our branding. The amazing, amazing Vice President Kyoko Nagano was spearheading the creation of these swag with the design skills of the magnificent Kristen McQuillan. So we have our tote bag, which Tiffany has there, yes. We also have the pen and also the portable battery. So can everyone say, I'm empowered? Okay. So that's our little fun for the day. So, but it's a really useful bit of swag. So portable battery. Now, what I'll do is if everyone could hold their swag up, we'll take a photo. So if someone can take the photo, can everyone say empowered? 1, 2, 3, cheese. Okay, so I hope someone's got some photos there and we will have them up on the website. Now, if you have your swag, you can also take a photo, and if you see down below, there is a gallery. If you feel free to upload a photo of you with your swag in the wild where you are, and we will add you to that gallery as well. If you did not receive your swag or you didn't sign up for your swag, get in touch with us and we will get it out to you on our next mail out. But there's also a little gift. If you join up today, if you become part of our community today, you'll also get this swag. So we have a little video to show now about the sort of things that you can experience if you come and join our community. So if we can roll that video right now, that would be great.
Hello, my name is Jackie Steele, and I am the President and Representative Director of FEW Japan Incorporated Association. I arrived in Japan in 1997, and I've spent much of that time since then in rural areas such as Nagano and northern Tohoku. During that time, I often craved meeting and speaking with other like-minded, global-minded women who shared values of equality, welcoming diversity and multiculturalism, and for women for whom being bilingual, being multilingual is just normal. Nothing special, just the way we are.
There was 2 women really missing their American networking spaces for career women, and then they launched, and it was called Foreign Executive Women.
There were just some amazing ladies having this community. It was just really, really a nice community that I really wanted to be a part of.
Flagship Career Strategies Seminar, which is a biannual event, started in the 1990s. Amazing thought diversity that you get in these spaces when you come to the Career Strategies seminars.
2008 CSS was in fact my first ever FEW event that I went to. It was fantastic and it totally changed my life. I cannot describe to you the impact that FEW had on me.
In 2008, we did have a name change away from Foreign Executive Women to For Empowering Women.
Biggest event of my presidency was the change to FEW's membership rules to allow Japanese nationals to become FEW members. The name change was just a natural step, probably one of the most significant changes that FEW went to in its history.
A new need pop up with entrepreneurial women needing service and supports and networking and mastermind.
Everybody has lots of energy and really motivated. Everybody introduced to friends about my business. Foundation of building like entrepreneur career.
We had the Women's Startup Club, and that was launched and held many different training sessions.
Community is so encouraging and so supportive. If you need something, tell them, yo, I'm here. Somebody talk to me, please. It's such an embracing and supportive community, which is hard to find.
We've had public events that have really raised the profile, and we get really amazing turnouts at those events. We've had obviously very big digital transformations with COVID hitting and having to go all online, digital networking only. We're also building new programs. We've expanded to the peer-to-peer networking program. We are bringing back the horizontal networking through a Slack space that's for members only, so you can find each other and chit chat in between meetings. What we can do as a community that's both offline and online.
FEW Japan offers a space where women are the majority and where our diversity of our lived experiences is celebrated, welcomed, and we build community together around those diverse experiences. We hope that you will join our community. We'd love to get to know you better. FEW Japan has been around for 40 years supporting women's empowerment, and we'd love for you to join us, and let's make waves together for another 40 years to come.
Well, that was interesting. So if there was some issues with the sound, that video, you will see it all over social media. Today was the first day we played it. So played it live. You will be able to see that video on social media, on our website, and see it in its entirety. So we invite you to view that video and also down in the agenda there is a link to see the benefits of joining our community. We're very committed to supporting English-speaking women all over Japan, not just being centralized in Tokyo. We see that as a core theme for our organization, and it's a value that we hold very dear. You can learn more about that on our website, and also if you watch that video again. I'm going to keep pushing on because I'm watching the clock and I'm very conscious of time. So we've got some questions that have come in from the audience, and we'll try to get to as many as we can, but we've only got 15 minutes. But if there's something specific, we can come and circle back and maybe after the event. We will do our absolute best. So Jackie, I'm going to see, do you have the first question? Because I've been watching the stream.
Wonderful. And maybe there's a question that we actually didn't ask in the rapid fire that maybe we could kick off with just briefly right now. And then we're also going to pull in more of these questions. And I think it's something that's on everyone's mind, always inevitably. And it's not to put Kenny on the spot, but often, of course, when you're the only in the room, you get asked to speak for your gender, and we don't want to put that on you. We really just want you to speak for yourself and for your own personal views. But, you're CEO. I know certainly in the work I'm doing with companies that tone from the top is really important, and how we role model inclusive leadership is really key to sending those signals to the rest of our employees and our managers, but also to our clients. So my question, the big, $4,000 question is, how is it for you, and how do you find that as a man you can be a very strategic ally and co-conspirator and change agent around building more diversity in this space, and also creating a really hospitable environment for women's leadership to thrive and to shine? How are you moving the dial, and what are your thoughts on that?
Sure. No, thank you. As CEO of Code Chrysalis, I am normally the one bringing 10 ideas to the table, and 9 of them get scrapped and said they're terrible ideas. Maybe occasionally I'll have 1 or 2 ideas that work. But it's the CTO and the CEO, Jill and Yan, that's kind of really driving Code Chrysalis' success. So let me tell that up front first. But yes, CEOs are at an amazing position to cultivate the core values and the culture of a company. And the most important thing a CEO can exercise is to make sure that you're starting to create a diverse workplace at your own company. I mentioned that Code Chrysalis is 54% women. 69% of our managers are women. That's something I'm very proud of, because normally even if the ratios of women are high, we don't see them in LMA, leadership, management, accountability positions. So this is a real amazing achievement. 40% of our leadership team, this is the C-suite team, are women. And there are 2 positions that are open right now, which could raise that to 57% of our leadership team being women. So I'm really excited about driving that kind of a diverse work team at Code Chrysalis. But it's not enough to create the diverse team, right? So, okay, we have a diverse team, and it's not just men and women, actually. It's a really diverse team of individuals in terms of all aspects of the definition of diversity. But now I think we have our work cut out for us. We need to listen to those voices. Everyone's voice must be heard. So this is something that we are continuously working on. Workspace misogyny is not always in your face, but it happens. It's time to understand that it happens. And there are also some subconscious biases that also happen at work, even whether you're a man or a woman. So I think the most important thing a CEO, any CEO can do is to create, you mentioned it, Jackie, is to create that psychologically safe environment for your company where it's okay to call these things, these kinds of behaviors out and allow us to talk, learn, and grow from them. So that's one. CEOs also should be advocating for good hiring practices that don't turn away women. For example, we never put things like years of experience and or bachelor's degrees required. Many Japanese women, they will quit their jobs as they become moms and they want to return to the workforce. And then the companies ask, where's your experience? It's so unfair. I just did an interview yesterday of a mom of mother of 3 who's actually never worked after graduating university because she decided to be a stay-at-home mom. And we have many moms that work for us. So I think it's always important to to look what's in your resumes and make sure that they're not turning away women. So that's a few things. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. And actually, I will mention, we need to continue to learn. We're not perfect. I think I mentioned myself doing DEI training right now, but I think that kind of acceptance of your, this problem is larger than we think. And I think we need to continue to put ourselves through these learnings so that we can always continue to improve the work environment. So I'm answering your question, Jackie, through what I can do for my company and Code Chrysalis, but hoping that it could also be an example that others could follow.
Thank you. Thank you
Wonderful.
for that perspective, Kani. I'm looking at the questions, and a number of them that have come through are actually in regards to hiring practices. And so there's a question here that from someone in the audience asking about they want to hear about various recruiting companies and that are trying to encourage diversity, possibly beyond engineering, if possible. So if anyone has examples of recruiting companies that are showing best practices in this, I think there are people in the audience who would be keen to hear some perspective on that. So I put that out to any of the panelists. Please just unmute if you have any suggestions.
I can just say quickly that we actually tell our recruiters, the companies that we work with, irrespective of who they are, and if they have this practice or not, to bring us a listing of candidates that are representative of women. So if you don't mention this, you're not going to get a good. You're going to get more men in the lists that you get. So you need to mention this upfront.
I think someone actually brought that up as well, that said that that someone who was saying that what can they do when they are sent resumes for a position? There's rarely, if any, women to interview. How can they attract more applications from women?
Mm-hmm.
If I can sorry, go ahead, Rajan.
Okay, so I was gonna say that if it's really up to the hiring company. So it's really up to you, the person who asked the question, to specify who you want. Because a lot of these recruiting companies understand that they are just there to fill positions, and they really work for you, the hiring company. So you are the one who needs to specify exactly what you're looking for in order to be able to get this done. I know, like here in Canada, I can use an example. Society here is very conservative. I'm sure Japan is somewhat the same way. And so there hasn't been a lot of sharing of the little nuances and differences, culturally between men, women, and people in underrepresented groups. And so this is something that, companies are really still trying to wrap their heads around, that understanding of those differences, so that they can understand, how they need to rewrite job postings, as an example, to appeal more to women, and maybe somebody of East Indian descent or somebody of African ancestry, as an example, to get those people to apply for certain types of positions, right? There's the different types of language that you would use that appeals more to women than it does to men. So it's really up to the hiring companies, as in the people who are doing the hiring, to specify what's needed so that the needle can move, because the recruiting companies, honestly, their hands are tied because they are basically working for whatever you ask them for.
And if I can just briefly add on to that. So if it's through direct hiring, I completely agree. The phrasing is really important. I think women in general, particularly young women straight out of university, will imagine that they have to meet every single criteria, whereas a man will just try to apply and probably get the position. So I think the way it's phrased, and again, I think the universities play a critical role preparing women. You don't have to meet every single criteria on that job description. You can negotiate it. And also that's just sort of, unless they've already pre-decided who that job is for, it's open to all. And it's usually not phrased to cater to women, unfortunately, because it's often men, or just using some template examples. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and also Rajan and Kenny for those remarks around recruitment. And certainly, I mean, if I just even mention things that I see in terms of best practices in the DEI space and what we're recommending to companies in my other life, often we're really talking about sending signals, of course, through the actual job description. When we're talking about listing off that you need 15 years, the number of women, if they've had career interruptions temporarily for child rearing or other reasons, or anyone who's had an interruption, caregiving, elder care, men as well have these different challenges that they're facing. Those numbers of years of experience can be a definite suppression of interest. Making sure that you're signaling that they're not just looking for in the Japanese context that you have to graduate Todai or University of Tokyo, University of Kyoto, Waseda, Keio to be considered elite, that you can be coming from a women's university. It diversifies the talent pool right there in terms of how you are showing an openness and putting in those statements within the job description itself. And then whether or not those signals and those, as Rajan mentions, those nuanced languaging of invitation really to show a hospital environment for diversity, and that thought diversity and lived diversity is so key. On that talk, yes, go ahead, Sasha.
Just wanted to add a couple of words. I completely agree with what everyone said about the job opening, about the job descriptions. The requirements towards the CVs and resumes. If you look at the typical Japanese direct show, it has a space for the picture, right? I think that this requirement to put their picture really creates some prejudices as well. And also this traditional Japanese direct show has a requirement to put your gender as well. I think this is something that should be probably reconsidered or eliminated if we want really to companies to reach out this complete parity, complete gender equality.
Thank you, Sasha. And certainly the Japanese Nideksho or CV does include photo and age and other details that can work against, of course, in particular women. And there's debate, I will say there's debate about whether you want gender blind or not gender blind applications, because the research is divided on whether that actually works to eliminate bias. But certainly I think it works in different contexts. And so we need to have a diversity of tactics. There's a question from the audience that came in about what are the steps, tangible steps, that a middle manager can be taking in terms of building out a more inclusive space as a middle manager. So I want to throw this question to the panel. Who would like to pop on your mic and maybe venture? What have you done when you were middle managers, if you are currently middle managers or senior managers?
Rejan, you've unmuted. Did you want to answer that question?
I can take a stab at it. I mean, I have managed teams before, and my focus is to make sure everybody is treated equitably. So, really having one-on-one conversations with each member of my team, sort of understanding what are their specific challenges to their jobs, rather than assuming what I think it is based on, my own experiences. And really working with the upper and executive management based on that information to improve the value of each employee as much as you can, given the information that you've been able to gather. For me, honestly, it's as simple as treating everybody equally, giving them the opportunity to voice their opinions, knowing you always have an open door policy. Those are things that I've usually used in the past, that have worked fairly well. And what you find is that if any specific or unusual challenges come up during an employee's experience, they are more likely to come to you because, they have already gotten that sense of openness from you, knowing that, that you will work on their behalf to find a solution to any problems rather than, being punitive towards them in any way. So that's just some of the things that I've done in the past regarding this issue.
Thank you, Rejan. We have another question from Melanie Santos. She said that I'm about to finish an HTML CSS coding course. And what are the first job options that she should look at as someone with base level coding skills? Shirley, do you have any insight on that?
Yes, I think maybe Kani and Sasha have opinions about this too. But as somebody who has studied that, I think if you only have experience in HTML and CSS, which is actually really good for a front-end engineer, you can also probably look into UI UX positions as well. Currently, there's a lot of scope for website design. So it not only goes for front-end engineering, it also means like you can work in WordPress design, for example, or like the course, like the jobs where you don't actually have to like design the whole front end, but work in like WordPress. So those kind of things are also available. So yeah, front end, UI, UX, content design would be something I would encourage, but if Kani and Sasha have some other opinions, please feel free.
Yeah, I would, what Shirley said, but I would add, engineering is an interesting profession in that you never stop learning. So once you get into that job and you find that, cool opportunity, keep exploring, be curious, and you could find areas that are really interesting to you, or you might want to go broader and expand into maybe towards the back end as well. So just keep an open mind. But yeah, at this point, landing that first job and becoming a professional, I think is the first step. And then just keep at it, and you'll see more bigger opportunities as they present themselves.
Thank you. I would also like to add that if you have a basic coding skills, it's not necessary you should become a developer. There are so many job options there in the market that you can utilize as basic coding skills. For example, digital marketing, like content marketing, For example, something related to any kinds of marketing, sales as well, content creation as well. If you have basic coding skills, product manager, a project manager. If you want to become a front-end developer, for example, I would say that only HTML and CSS skills are probably not enough. That you might be, I would recommend you to consider learning a bit of JavaScript. There are so many online courses out there like Code Academy or Udemy or Coursera. So vanilla JavaScript would be really, really beneficial. If you put it in your portfolio, then I'm pretty sure that you can get yourself a front-end developer entry-level job. Good luck.
Thank you to everybody. Look, I'm looking at the time. We are over time. So I'm going to wrap it up. There were a couple more questions that we didn't get to. I apologize for that. But I just wanted to, again, thank all of our speakers for your generosity, for your time and your expertise. Sparkle fingers for you. So thank you to everybody. I also wanted to thank all of the board who have been busy working around in the background and supporting all of us here. A big thank you to everybody. Thank you all. Again, I wanted to thank the CSMs, our corporate sustaining members and our organizational members, because without them, Few would look very, very different. We are very grateful to the support that you provide us so that we can bring these very important and timely conversations to the, I was going to say to the market, but just to the field. So we appreciate all of their support. Now, we've been collecting data through this event, and we'll put a recap of everything up on our website. You'll be able to come back in and review this panel, review this live stream at any time. I encourage you to also go back into your profile, fill it in. Again, think of it like your LinkedIn profile, and then you can click around and see who else attended, and see if there's a good way to network that way. One other piece of information. We hope that we've given you some good information about our organization, and please click on that link below to learn more about us if you're curious, and join our community. We would love to have you on board. So I'm going to pass over to Jackie for some quick takeaways, but with that, I want to thank everyone for coming along.
Thank you. All genders, spaces of critical learning matter. And of course, building a society where diversity of thought and diversity of lived experiences are honored is the goal that we're working towards to innovate forward. And we can learn from other countries, other societies, other sectors, other industries, other change agents, other leaders, other people in our family who teach us things. And I think what we're building is for partnerships for change. We're all, I think, interested in building a democratic society, and democratic societies, plural, where we're rich in collegial exchange of ideas, where we solution for the complexities of this era and of human messiness. If we want to survive as a species on the earth, we need to get this solved, and solved with all of that diversity. We want to thank you for being a part of our community. Of course, Few Japan believes that it's important to have multi-stakeholder partnerships. So thank you for being with us tonight. So this morning, for those of you joining very early morning in Toronto, Rejan. And truly, thank you for being a part of our community. Join our community. We welcome you, and we think that we're stronger together. And we look forward to seeing you online at our next events. Good night, and have a good day.